Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Ice Cold Takes podcast. I'm your host, Joey DeMeglio, and preseason hockey is underway for the Rangers, and they're already facing injury issues with Ryan Lindgren and Artemi Panarin. Joining me today to talk about this and more is the only guy I've ever met that doesn't have a problem with ketchup on pasta, Jonny Lazarus. Welcome back, my friend. How are you?
Thank you for the kind introduction, Joey. It's an honor to be back on here. I was trying to come up with the last time I was on here last year. I know 2 years ago it didn't really work out well for us, but hopefully this year it turns into something good.
Yeah, 2 years ago you said the Rangers were going to be first round exit, and then they lost to the Devils in 7 in round 1.
That was tough.
Yeah. I bet you couldn't predict that, though, that it was gonna be the Devils, and then
I definitely could not have. I definitely could not have at the time.
Yeah. I wanted to mention, I don't know if I ever said anything to you, but the Tony DeAngelo interview you and Colby did with Daily Faceoff Morning Cup of Hockey, that was awesome. That was great.
Thank you. Yeah, I know that got kind of mixed reviews. Obviously people either love Tony or they hate Tony. I like I said in the show, I never met Tony. And when I was younger, like obviously I'd read all the stories and heard everything about him. And I like most Ranger fans, you kind of believe what you hear at times and don't like a guy for what you hear about him. But, since working in the league and whatnot over the last 2-3 years, like I've met a lot of guys that have played with him and love him as a teammate. And Colby and him are friends and know each other personally. So when Colby was like, let's get him on, I was like, yeah, I'll give him I'd love to talk to him and give him a chance and hear about that altercation. So really nice of him to come on without a contract. Obviously, it's not something that guys typically do. Like we've had other guests that we wanted to get on the show this summer who were unsigned players that didn't really want to talk about hockey without being signed. Obviously people had their opinions on it. I thought it was great. And I thought it was awesome to hear from him about what had happened with Georgiev, back then, I think in like 2021. But thank you for saying that. I appreciate it. And hopefully people just got more insight about him from that.
Yeah. And I'm glad it was you guys that did the interview, and rather than like, I don't know, spitting chicklets. I don't know. That's just weird. I feel like you and Colby have a good grasp of the players, and I don't know, they like talking to you based on like the Dubinsky interview and Sean Avery
he's the best.
On your show.
Yeah.
Avery likes you. Avery likes you guys on Blue Crew.
Yeah,
those are great when he hops on for you guys.
Thank you. Appreciate that. Yeah, he's obviously a character in himself too. So always cool when he comes on.
All right, so let's get into the Rangers here. So I wanted to start with like the injuries to Lindgren and Panarin. I saw Panarin was out there skating today. You said you weren't at practice, so I'm assuming he's good to go.
Good to go, unsure of, but he's gonna get into another preseason game. It sounds like, again, this is not like my reporting. I wasn't there. I didn't talk to Peter Laviolette. So I don't know exactly what was said, but based on what Vince, Molly, Colin, Arthur, Peter, all those guys have reported, it sounds like he'll get back in and it's not a super serious injury. Lindgren, on the other hand, sounds a little bit more serious. I think he'll be out possibly for opening night. Again, like the Rangers and the way they handle injuries, like there's never a real timetable. And you never really know exactly what's going on with the player. It's always a little bit, not as specific as it could be. So we'll see. But from right now, it sounds like there's an extra defensive spot up for grabs on opening night.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about that. Yeah. And the Rangers usually are very picky about the right side, left side. They want righties on the right, lefties on the left for defensive pairings. But Victor Mancini has been unbelievable so far. I mean, he only played one game, and the rookie games he was in were awesome too. Is there any shot that he could make the opening night roster just to play for Lindgren?
Yeah, I mean, listen, I think every year fans, including myself, you kind of get attached to one player that like isn't necessarily a long shot, but just looks good in preseason. Like last year, if you remember, the guy we were all talking about was Mac Hollowell. But he, and even Ty Emberson, who then got put on waivers a little bit later. But last year, I think there weren't as many spots open. And Jonesy obviously was the guy that, was the 7th D. But Hollowell had a hell of a training camp last year, played really well in preseason. Laviolette mentioned, how good he looked, and he didn't make the team. So like, while there is a lot of hype on Mancini right now, another guy I look to is Connor Mackey, who like played a couple games last year, had that big fight in Ottawa, like is a left shot, big body defenseman. I would say that I think just if I'm picking the safe choice, they might go with Mackey over Mancini. just because he has that comfort level already. But again, like Mancini, I believe, is playing tonight, so we'll see how he looks in tonight's game. And the more confidence he gets, the better opportunity he'll get. So right now, if I had to pick one, like I'm not going to take a long shot or like put a bet on it or whatever. But if I was thinking inside the mind of Peter Laviolette, I would think he goes with Connor Mackey just because he's seen him before. He knows him a little bit more. But Mancini for sure has a chance to make this opening night roster, I'd say for sure.
Which is pretty surprising considering he was just drafted a couple years ago. And it was like
but again,
middle round pick. So he's
it's a preseason game. Everyone gets a little excited, which is great. It's obviously it's fun to be excited, right? Like I'm not going to sit here and tell people not to be excited. Like it's hockey. We're all fans. We want to be excited. We want to be, we want to have someone to be excited about. If Mancini impresses again tonight, then I think it's a more real conversation, but I wouldn't make a decision off of one preseason game.
Yeah, that's like the one side of the spectrum here is like we see the good and we're overhyping it. Yeah. And then like last year when we saw Lafreniere get off to a really bad start in preseason, everyone was losing their minds. I'm already seeing it with Brennan Othmann. I'm seeing a lot of people say that he's a bust. But to me, I don't know about you, but I see a potentially great third liner. Maybe like
this year?
Physical, not this year. No, in the future.
Yeah.
Not this year. Because I don't think his offensive game is there yet, but maybe like a Sam Bennett type. I don't know. I don't want to start making comparisons and jumping the gun there, but he likes to throw the body around, which is I feel like that's a pretty rare trait with younger guys coming up. But that's a good like little tool the Rangers have in their back pocket. I don't think he's ready yet to make the opening night roster, which is a bit disappointing. But if they give him just a little bit more time, I don't see him as like a top line winger, maybe like a middle six, like a third line type of guy. What do you think?
Well, yeah, I mean, right now there's just no room for him. I don't know who you're taking out to put Othmann in. Also against the Islanders, I don't think he really did enough to like stand out. Obviously the third period was exciting, but I don't think anyone really played that well for the Rangers, prior to the third period. So, a guy like Othmann needs to stand out if he's going to make the opening night roster. That's a guy who has to do everything he can. I know he fought in Boston and looked better in Boston, but I just don't see it right now. And yeah, future for sure. I mean, you look at next year, Riley Smith is a UFA upcoming, Capo Caco an RFA again, Will Cooley an RFA, Rempe an RFA, VZ a UFA. There's a lot of roster spots that could be open next year, which if Othmann has another strong season down in the AHL, like could really compete for a spot, I think, in this lineup next year. This year, I still don't think it's there for him. Maybe a call-up here and there in the middle of the season, but right now, like you said, I just don't think he's ready. And again, like I don't know who you take out to put him in for.
Would you say the same thing about Brett Berard?
Yeah. I mean, pretty much you can categorize those two together. And Berard, again, the other night against the Islanders, I don't think there was enough, I'm not sure if those two guys are playing tonight. I'm sure they'll get into another preseason game, maybe two. So, again, it's only been 2 games so far. We'll see what those guys can do. And if they can make a better impression, then it's a different conversation.
Yeah. Vince tweeted out that Othmann was playing tonight. So Othmann's is going to be in all 3 preseason games so far.
As he should be.
Yeah.
As he should be. Same with Berard.
Yeah. So we're going to get a good look at him. So we already heard about how you feel about like Mancini, but one of the big questions that the Rangers have based on how last season ended, again, 5-on-5 play. So what can the Rangers do to improve that this season?
I feel like this has been it's been an issue, I think, since even like 21, 22. You look at those deadline acquisitions like Frank Vetrano, Andrew Kopp, Tyler Mott, those guys come in, help the 5-on-5 a little bit, but this has been an issue for years now. It wasn't just last year. But again, like on the flip side, it's such an annoying argument because come playoff time, yeah, teams that produce 5-on-5 do well, but if they go cold in the power play, they don't go far. I mean, the perfect example of a team where you can kind of look at them as the opposite of the Rangers is like Carolina, where the Hurricanes at 5-on-5, they're great, right? The numbers are amazing. The analytics are great. They support how good Carolina is at 5-on-5. When it comes to goaltending and special teams, that's what gets them in trouble. The Rangers had the opposite problem, right? The power play helps them get far, and their goaltending is what takes them above the top. So when it comes to the 5-on-5 stuff, it's obviously important, but if you have those things to lean on, it helps your team. And obviously the game is played at 5-on-5 mostly, but to me, when you look at the other rosters in the NHL, like, yeah, the Panthers obviously were incredible at 5-on-5 in the playoffs last year, but the Rangers weren't all that bad, in my opinion, against Carolina. And in the Florida series, while they did struggle, they still got some scoring. Like, you look at, I believe, games 3 and 4 in Florida, those are the games Lafreniere really stepped up and had a couple goals. Like, it wasn't beyond quiet, if that makes sense.
They
Like,
gave up a lot in games 3 and 4 in Florida, though.
they gave up a lot.
Like, a lot
On
of,
5-on-5.
Well,
Florida was a better team.
chances.
Florida was a
Yeah.
better team. There's no denying that. Florida was a better team. But, like, I'm not sitting here saying, like, the Rangers are outmatched by, more than 50% of the league at 5-on-5. I would take the Rangers up against most teams at 5-on-5. And then when you have the power play that produces at, a 25% plus rating and a goaltender who's, a top 2 goaltender in the NHL, like, I'll still take their chances over most teams in the NHL.
So you're not looking at it as, like, the Rangers need to be way better at 5-on-5. You just need them to
they
be
do,
better
of
at
course.
Yeah, but, like, you're looking at it more as, like, because they have the goaltending and the power play to lean on, just a few moments here and there where they need to be better than the opposition.
Yeah. I mean, look at it. Like, it was a big conversation last year. For the most part, every team that won the special teams battle in their series ended up winning the series. Like, that's a huge thing come playoff time. And when you look at those Lundqvist era teams, the Rangers power play was horrible. Had they scored a couple power play goals in the playoffs when Hank was in net, like, we're talking about a different outcome here, possibly, And now I know 5-on-5 obviously is their crutch, but because their power play is so strong, they're still able to find success. And, Dallas, look at Dallas last year against Edmonton. I don't think Dallas scored a power play goal in their series against the Oilers, and that's what held them back, and Dallas was a really strong 5-on-5 team. Like, you have to be well-rounded in all these areas. And I think, that's something I'm sure we'll get into also with Mika Zibanejad. I know there are people who want Mika off the first unit to help him at 5-on-5, but when he's so strong, and I know last year was a down year for him, but when he's such a big threat on the power play, when you take that away from him, what do you think's going to happen? Like, he's not just going to automatically get better at 5-on-5 if he has 4 less minutes of ice time. I think him being on the power play is what, and coming at it from a former player, when you're on the power play, you just feel so much more involved in the game. You're excited on the bench. You get to feel the puck a little bit more. You get more time and space. It just kind of slows down for you a little bit. Whereas when you're not on special teams, like, it's easy to kind of lose your mind and lose your focus on the bench. So I think I got a little off topic, but yes, obviously the Rangers 5-on-5 is the biggest concern, but in the grand scheme of things, I'd rather that be the weakest area than anything else, because I know how frustrating it is to see a goalie that can't make a save when you need to, and a power play that can't find a goal when they need it.
Yeah.
If I'm picking one, I'm picking the 5-on-5. That's all I'm saying.
I see what you're saying, because game 6 in Carolina, Anderson couldn't make a save in the 3rd period. And if they had that, then we're probably looking at a game 7.
And I think the Rangers scored what, 2 power play goals in that period? Kreider had a deflection. And no, it might have just been one. Might have just been the one, actually. Yeah.
So it was the 2 5-on-5 goals. And then the empty netter from Goudreau.
Yeah.
But last thing on 5-on-5 before I move on, puck moving, like, breakouts was, like, a big issue in the Florida series.
Yeah.
I think a lot of that had to do with like Trouba's ankle, and I don't know, they just weren't as effective. Maybe the guys were all, like, beat up at that point because
Also, the way Florida plays, they just hound the puck.
They're a relentless forechecking team.
Yeah.
But having a guy like Zach Jones in the lineup, that's got to help in those areas. I mean, we haven't seen Jones play in a playoff game yet, so I'm sure in the regular season he'll be fine. But having that ability to move the puck up the ice, that's got to help the 5-on-5 play a little bit more. No.
Well, yeah, you need your defenseman to get the puck from one zone to the next. Like, that's the biggest key to the game, is being connected in all 3 zones. And when it comes to Zach Jones, like, he's a great skater, but his ability to make that first pass, just as strong as maybe anyone outside of Adam Fox and the Rangers. I trust Jones as much as I would trust Keandre Miller. Keandre's able to do it with his legs a little bit more because he's so fast up and down the ice, and he can kind of use his reach and use his speed to get the puck out of the zone. But when it comes to just making a simple D-to-D breakout pass, Zach Jones is right there with the rest of them. And obviously, when it comes to having D, the league has trended a little bit more to the bigger guys. Like you look at Boston, and I think people are concerned about Boston this year in their roster, but their D I think is going to be so strong. I don't think they have a defenseman shorter than 6'2". But when you have a guy like Jonesy that can just make that simple play, doesn't really overthink anything or overcomplicate anything, that really helps.
I know there's already going to be a few people that are going to question having Jones in there because of his size. Are you concerned about that at all? Like
Not
him
at all.
being smaller?
Look at the size of the Norris Trophy winning defenseman last year. What's Quinn? 5'9", 5'10"? Not concerned at all.
Aren't they all like McCarr, Fox, and Hughes all around the same?
I think Kale's 6 foot. Fox is probably 5'11" or 6 foot.
Yeah.
And I think Quinn's like around like 5'10", 5'11".
Yeah. They're all like they all play the game like it's chess. Like they have a high IQ, I feel like, and that's what makes them good, like the best and better than like their size indicates. You know what I mean? Like
Well, it's just their ability to skate. I mean, you look at Quinn and Kale, especially those two. The way they change speed and use their hips and how mobile they are in the blue line, like it's impossible just to stay in front of them and to track them down and to contain them. Speaking from personal experience, like, I was teammates with Kale for a semester in college, and I had to practice against him and play like mock penalty kill against him when he was in the power play. And like, you think he's going to shoot, and then he just opens up his hips like this and walks around you and comes right downhill and fires it. I mean, he's an unbelievable skater. Quinn the same way. Like, I think if you ask a lot of other defensemen, Mario Ferraro said it on my show this summer that like, he thinks Quinn Hughes is the best at walking the blue line in the NHL. And that's something that's so big too. And that's why Zach Jones is on the second power play unit as well as the quarterback, because his ability to be lateral in the blue line, that's so important on the power play, because then you open up so many different lanes when you have someone that can move that fast side to side.
Moving back to the Rangers in preseason, I'm asking you this because you played the game, so you have better knowledge than all the other reporters. In my opinion.
I wouldn't say that, but the playing experience for sure.
You got the one up on them. I'm sticking with that.
I never played an NHL preseason game, so I don't know if I can really talk to that. But what do you got?
What stands out to you the most about Adam Edstrom in preseason? I feel like he's looked really sharp so far.
What stood out most about Edstrom? I think just his ability to think the game. You kind of look at him and he doesn't really do anything that's overcomplicated. Like, he's playing a very simple game, and that's so important too, because sometimes when you want to make an impression, you try to do a little bit more. But with him, I think there's a certain comfort level, and obviously he played a couple games last year, so he has that already as an advantage over other guys. But he makes the easy pass to the point, goes to the net, like the little things that aren't so pretty on a stat sheet or maybe in a highlight reel, but are so effective, right? Like, I thought him and Rempe, and I believe Decision was their center the other night against the Islanders. Like, I thought they were the best line the whole night. And what they were doing was basically just grinding down the Islanders D, winning a puck battle and getting it to the point and getting to the net and trying to create a rebound. Like, that's something that Edstrom does so well. He's not going to, toe drag a guy or beat a guy one-on-one necessarily with his speed, but he'll out battle, most guys out there. And that's so important too, because come playoff time and just in the, the game of hockey in general, the team that wins the 50-50 battles is typically going to win the game. And that's something that, the Rangers have struggled with in years past is, when you have a battle in the corner, sometimes the Rangers weren't as tough and weren't as strong and didn't come out with that puck. But with guys like Edstrom and Rempe especially too, they're in there winning the battle and keeping the offensive pressure alive. That's so big too. And not only does that do something good for the shift that's happening at the time, but when you create that offensive zone pressure and you get a fresh change, the D now are a little bit tired in their own zone, and then you get your fresh guys with, fresh legs coming out there, and they continue that momentum. And that's something that's so big too.
Yeah, I was going to say that Rempe and Edstrom and Decision, that line was really aggressive in that game against the Islanders. Probably the biggest reason why they were able to come back in that game, which was crazy game. I mean, the Islanders are still blowing leads in the preseason, so that's not good for them. But do you think Rempe is good enough now to be an everyday player, or are you still looking at him as like a 13th forward, kind of in and out of the lineup type of guy?
I thought he was an everyday player last year. I was a big fan of Matt Rempe's game. And just honestly, I was a big fan of the whole, I guess for lack of a better term, distraction that he was. listen, I don't think he's the reason they went as far as they did, but I think it's hard to deny the impact he had on the game. And now, you watched him the other night. He was stick handling a little bit more, skating with the puck a little bit more, felt a little bit more confident in his game, trying to make plays out there. I think his ice time was north of 10 minutes too, so that obviously helps him get in a rhythm. But I think he is a guy that again, they didn't treat him like a hockey player last year. If you treat him like a hockey player and let him get that experience, let him get those minutes that he needs to gain that confidence, it's only going to pay off in a positive way. So, I think Rempe right now is the fourth line right winger, and I don't see why he wouldn't be.
Yeah, it was nice to actually see him out there consistently, not
stick handling
see him
a
in the
bit too.
first and second period, and then that's it. You don't see him the rest of the game, like in the playoffs.
Yeah.
You probably noticed this. Sam and Joe pointed it out on the broadcast that he made one really neat play in his own zone against the forechecker on the
He
Islanders.
passed it against the boards to himself.
Yeah,
Good play.
that was unbelievable.
It's a confident play too.
Yeah, I was not expecting that at all. Sam and Joe called it like a Fox-like play.
It was just a confident play. I mean, I think if that's 7 months ago, he's just turning around and getting it out of the zone.
Yeah, that was great. That raised my eyebrows a little bit, and I was like, yeah, this guy is for real now. It's not just like a cute, like fun player. Like this is like a legit fourth
Just
liner.
one little self pass in the preseason makes you believe, huh?
Yes.
Yeah. That's why you gotta love the preseason.
And one missed back check last year by Lafreniere doesn't make me not believe him.
What, the own goal in game 1?
No, I'm talking about in
Oh.
the preseason last year, when Lafreniere didn't back check, and that's when
I remember that. Yeah.
That was why everyone was freaking out now. I
Mhm.
mean, he's done a complete 180 in a full year. 50 something points. What did he have? Like 57? Yeah, 57 points, all those pretty much even strength. And seeing all these guys get big pay raises around like Slavkovsky. Who else just got a contract? Someone else just got a Lucas Raymond, yes. Who was in Lafreniere's draft class. Does that worry you about the Rangers being able to lock him up long term?
What do you mean? What do you mean worry me?
Do you think like he's gonna ask for more than those guys and it's gonna handicap the Rangers?
Ask for more? I don't think he's gonna ask for more than those guys. I think he'll be right around the same, if anything. But that all depends on this year. That all depends on this year too. He's in a contract year this year. So if he puts up, let's say like 70, 75 points, maybe then he's asking for a little bit more, knowing that the cap is going up as well, right? So the cap, I think, is going up like another $4 million here pretty soon. And if he asks for like 8.5 or something, I don't think anyone would bat an eye at that if he has another year like last year. But no, I mean, I hope they lock him up long term. Like I think everyone knows at this point I'm a big Lafreniere guy. He's my favorite player on the team, probably one of my favorite players in the league. And I want to see him do well. And I think he's one of the most fun guys to watch. And I think people that took notice of it at the end of last year, because I think it was really like around February when the hype started to build on him. He had one game against Dallas at home last year where he played unreal, didn't even have a point, but had like 3 or 4 grade A chances, set up a couple guys for some backdoor passes that didn't go in. But from that game, everything turned for him. And hopefully he can build off that this year, and hopefully he gets that big payday.
There's a compilation on YouTube, is Dmitry Filipovich's the PDO cast of just Lafreniere's best plays last season that didn't necessarily result in goals or points for him, but they were just like great entries, like his skating ability.
So Dmitry put up like a 25-minute video.
Yes, the 25-minute
stuff. And I actually was talking to him, and I cut it just with the chances that didn't go in. And like, if you watch that video, Lafreniere could have had 75 points last year. Easily.
And what's crazy is that he gets all that at 5-on-5, and it's almost 0 power play time.
Yeah.
And I imagine that to be the case this season. So I was actually just going to ask you, like, you said 75 points, like if he could get that is pretty realistic considering what he was able to do last season. If more bounces go his way and for his teammates, I think that's realistic. What do you think?
I mean, he had 6 points in the power play last year, so that's 51 51 even strength points. Probably no, he doesn't PK, so probably nothing shorthanded. Maybe like a 3-on-3 or whatever. I know he had some overtime plays and whatnot, but 75 I'd say is a little unrealistic if he's not getting first power play time. But like 66 to 70, 1,000% realistic. But it's hard. It's hard when you don't get that consistent power play time. But right now, like from what we've seen in the preseason, it looks like Laviolette's doing 2 balanced power play units. We haven't really seen the first unit together. I don't love it, to be honest.
Why?
Because the Rangers power play unit's been so strong. I mean, they finished 3rd 2 years ago. They finished 7th last year. They've been, combined the 3rd best power play in the last 2 years in the NHL. And I'm a big don't fix what's not broken. And as much as I want to see Lafreniere on that first unit, I still think I don't know who you take off. And I just think that first unit is so reliable and so good. I would hate to see it get less time. And I know like it affects the way the bench moves and the way, guys' rhythm works the rest of the game. But I don't know. I think that first unit is, literally a top 3 unit in the league. And I would hate to see it get broken up.
You would keep running with like the 1 unit and keep running them out there. What, a minute?
Give the first unit a minute 15. Let the second unit get 45.
Yeah.
How I do it.
You remember when they did the 1A, 1B when they had like Kane and Tarasenko?
Yeah.
Didn't that work out for a little bit?
Well, a little, and then in the first round, the Rangers, this was my like favorite. I'm not happy about it, but it was my favorite thing to point out. In the Devils series, the Rangers scored power play goals in 3 games. Those were the 3 games that they won. They did not score a power play goal in 4 games. Those were the 4 games that they lost. So when the power play went cold, because it probably wasn't getting as many looks, it hurt them. When your first unit is buzzing like the Rangers have in the previous couple of years, it gives you so much confidence. And think about how many times we saw their power play come up so big last year. Look at the Stadium Series game everyone loves talking about. That doesn't happen if the Rangers power play unit isn't out there, feeling good about themselves. I don't know. It's a tough one, but yeah, like if you have it, you got to use it.
I will say when Lafreniere is the extra attacker and the small amount of times that ever happens, he always makes something happen out there. It's always him that's out there as the extra attacker. Like if you look at that game on what was it, Tuesday?
Yep.
Was it him in the slot
that the pass to Kreider?
Yep.
Yep.
And Kreider buried it. Tie the game. In the Stadium Series too, he made
the play in the corner, got it to Fox. Yep. Fox's advantage had.
Yeah. Yep. So I mean, it's not. I don't think he wouldn't like be out of place if they did try that.
No, 1,000%.
I understand. Like, yeah, you want to keep a good thing going, but if they struggle out of the gate and continue the way that they were against Florida, if that keeps going, would you be open to?
Oh, of course. Yeah. I think to start the year, you keep the first unit together. Obviously, if things go cold, you try something new. But until that happens, I think you stick with what's worked.
I feel the same way about the 5-on-5 lines at first. I proposed something yesterday, like what was it? I think I did like Kreider, Trocheck, and Smith as like a second line. But if I wouldn't change that right at the beginning. Like if nothing works out in the first, I don't know, 15-game first month of the season, let's say, maybe you could change some stuff up.
Well, hopefully your team's good enough where you can try things out like that too, right? Like if they get off to a good start, or have some breathing room in the standings, that's when you can try stuff.
Yeah, it's a long season too.
Yeah,
plenty of time for experiments. Just don't do it like Gallant did and keep changing the lines up until the last game of the season. I don't think the Rangers had any set lines that year.
No. Especially after the deadline, it kept changing too.
Yeah.
Trying to think.
They kept moving at least one guy like every 2 or 3 games. There was nothing like the Devils. When they played the Devils, they had their lines consistent for at least half the season. Like no changes at all. And then the Rangers just very frequently made changes.
It was a panic move when you're getting outplayed.
Yeah.
What are you gonna do?
That too in the playoffs as well. But we're getting into the meat of the episode, the big part of the episode, the one where everyone is coming here for. It's the Ice Cold Take segment. And today we're going to be answering the question: should the Rangers give Shesterkin whatever he's asking, and how big of a mistake would it be if they don't? Johnny, I want you to answer this from a fan's
Yeah, of course.
perspective.
Yeah,
Don't give me the reporting side of it.
I would love for that number to be 11.7.
Why 11.7?
Because it's higher than Panarin and it's under 12. I think Igor deserves to be the highest paid player on the team. I think he deserves to be the highest paid goalie in the NHL. Panarin obviously is going to have to negotiate a contract too after next year because his contract comes up after next season. And listen, if you're going to lose a guy, and I hate to say this because I love Panarin, I'd rather let Panarin walk any day of the week than let Igor Shesterkin walk. When you have, am I wrong?
It's pretty funny because I was actually thinking about that too, because it's just the next 2 or 3 years that the window is like tight, like the cap space is tight, and then it opens up after that. And Panarin's under contract for.
But also to that point, the Rangers' window to win a Stanley Cup, if Igor's here, is open until he's not. I think if you're fishing for a goalie that you need to go find, the window changes. And listen, like Igor Shesterkin, I mean, him, Vasilevsky, who's another goalie that like can really, I guess Swayman now. But even Swayman like hasn't carried Boston to a conference final. Like Igor has done it. And twice, exactly. And listen, like I hear so many other fan bases bitch and moan about, I wish our goalie would just make a save. Like even in Game 7 of the Cup final, and I'm not knocking Stuart Skinner because he was great for the majority of the playoffs. That Reinhart goal in Game 7, the game-winning goal in the Stanley Cup final, Igor Shesterkin makes that save 10 out of 10 times. 10 out of 10 times. When push comes to shove, you want the guy that you can rely on. And let me ask you, Joey, like, even though the Rangers never won a cup with Henrik, would you have let Henrik walk?
No, absolutely not.
No way. And I think it should be treated the same way. Like, I think goaltending is the most important position in this sport. You have the best one in the league, and you got to find a way to keep him. You got to. And if that means getting rid of, a guy who's going to put up 100 points in the regular season and isn't a guarantee to carry them to the Stanley Cup final, like, sure, let them go. I think the blue line and goaltending are as important as anything in the NHL. And the Rangers just should do whatever they can to keep Shesterkin.
I talked about this last week, and I didn't really pick a side on it. I just really addressed the other side of the issue. And I think the people that are, I guess you could say, against paying Shesterkin, it's not that they don't want to pay Shesterkin. It's just that they don't want to offer up that cap space and with the risk of not being able to improve the rest of the team, because they have so many free agents assigned this offseason. It's like 13 free agents, and that's not even including Lafreniere and K'Andre Miller extensions, and they're going to be pretty significant pay raises from what they're making right now. I understand like the point of not being able to improve the team, but I feel like it's too early to call it quits on what they have in place here. Like I know Zibanejad and Kreider are past 30 and they're not getting any younger. And I always thought that the pieces they acquired in the rebuild would become the core until they signed Panarin. Once they signed Panarin, those guys like Zibanejad and Kreider became the core because they fit in the same. They're around the same age as Panarin. Fox is a little bit younger. Lafreniere is a lot younger. K'Andre Miller is a lot younger. My question is, like, just from looking at the contract situation, at what point do those pieces, if they ever do, become the core the Rangers build around? Guys like Fox, Lafreniere, Miller, Schneider.
I don't think we're so far away from that. Kreider's contract has 3 years left on it. Mika still has like another 5, I think.
Yeah, he's signed. Yeah.
So he'll be around.
He can't. That's the other thing too, is like, if you don't sign Shesterkin, right? It's not like, I don't think that you're going to be able to move on from Zibanejad so easily.
No, I agree.
I don't think he's going to want to waive the no movement clause.
I agree.
And I don't think that's not, I don't think not signing Shesterkin so that you could move Zibanejad because you're not going to be as good. I don't think that's a very good strategy to proceed forward with
No,
your team. I think you have to run with what you got here, and you got to hope that Zibanejad could play to the way he was to earn that contract. Those years where he was scoring 30, 40 goals, the COVID year where he was on fire, scoring goals like crazy. You have to hope that he could get back to that. And I mean, he works. I'm assuming he's in great shape. He's still only 31. I think he could get back to that. I mean, last season was
it
a
was
down
really
year.
just last year that was a down year. Like, 2 years ago, he has 91 points. 21, 22, I think he has 80, like a point a game. 2021, I think like a little under a point a game. And then
That was
the
that was
1920 year, yeah, he had over 40 goals.
yeah.
And he was almost at like a goal a game pace in 1920. But Mika's been like a fringe 30-goal scorer every single year for the most part, and sometimes 40. Even last year, he still like finishes at a pretty high plus minus rating, definitely north of plus 10. And he's still a really responsible defensive player, one of the best PKers too. Almost had a shorthanded goal in the game the other night. Like, he's a threat shorthanded. And I think Mika obviously took a lot of flack last year just because he wasn't an aggressive shooter. He wasn't as successful on the power play. I think he only had like 12 power play goals, but he still finished with like 26 goals. It's not like a bad season. If he had 18 or 17 goals, yeah, I think, it's way worse. But the playoffs is what really killed him last year.
I think when he gets matched up against guys like Barkov is really where fans start to worry.
Yeah.
Is like, are we ever going to win?
Yeah.
And it's not that we're saying Zibanejad's a bad player. It's just in comparison, like Barkov blew him out of the water.
Yeah. But Barkov also blew everybody out of the water. Barkov was unbelievable. But like, that's no excuse. You want Mika to be that guy.
He's got to be at least comparable to the guys he's playing against. And I think the Rangers will. I mean, Shesterkin could bring them there, but if the 5-on-5 scoring, or if the scoring it just in general doesn't like taper off, maybe the power play, then maybe you're looking at a 7th game. But still, to me, that's all I could take it to, because I think the Panthers are just clearly the better team than the Rangers.
But just going back to the Igor thing, because I feel like that hasn't really been a conversation with, like, would you basically rather let Igor go or Panarin go? If you're just looking at it like contract wise, although again, they're going to have 1 year of crossover. So there will be some money that needs to be moved to like fit the cap. But like, I'm keeping Igor 10 out of 10 times. And then you hope that Lafreniere can like be that guy that Panarin is, right? And then like Gabe Perreault comes in, and then maybe Othmann comes in, and all these young guys start to fill those roles while you have the best goalie in the NHL.
Yeah, I
see the answer to me.
Yeah, it makes sense. It makes sense to me too. And another thing is, I don't know if putting any other goalie in there is just gonna, make it work for the Rangers. Like, if Ullmark hits free agency and the Rangers throw the bag at him instead of Shesterkin and save, I don't know, $6-7 million on the cap, I'm not sold on Ullmark, because he had good defense. Like, he had a good defense in Boston. Like, they actually were very solid. Shesterkin constantly has to make these saves that most other goalies won't make in their lives. Like, he has to bail them out, and I don't know. It's weird, because like, you put a goalie that's good but has a good defense there is not going to be used to a team that has like a spotty defense, like the Rangers. Like, there's holes in the Rangers defense. They make a lot of mistakes, and based on how the forwards play is what I'm worried about. Like, you take more chances in the offensive zone because you have Shesterkin back there. If the Rangers, if you put another goalie like Ullmark there, and the Rangers take chances because they know they're in that mindset of having a good goalie back there, it might not work out as well as it does with Shesterkin. That's the best argument I have for why I need to pay Shesterkin.
With Igor, you have a sure thing.
Yeah.
With everyone else, you don't know.
Yeah. And Dylan Garand too, like, we don't know what he is. We don't know what he is yet, so it's not like a foregone conclusion that if you put him in, he's gonna, you know, light the world on fire like Shesterkin did when he first came up, or
Mhm.
like Lundqvist did when he first came up years ago.
Yeah, fully agree.
Yeah, but it's not like I see both sides of the situation. It's really difficult for me, and like, if you don't pay Shesterkin, to me, you're just completely giving up on everything. Like, if you're gonna give up on everything, you might as well trade everybody, and I think it's still too soon to do that. And by everybody, I mean Fox, Lafreniere, and
That's
everybody
not happening.
special.
That's not happening.
I know,
Yeah.
exactly. That's why it doesn't why I wouldn't want why I want to sign Shesterkin. Yeah, there you
Mhm.
go. So, I know my guys in the chat here are gonna be upset with me, but there you go. There's the ice cold take. Uh,
I'm saying 11.7.
11.7. Yeah. Um, anything else that we have here? No. Well, that concludes the ice cold take segment. Um, Johnny, you have anything else to say before we wrap it up here? You wanna plug yourself? Daily
Um,
Faceoff, maybe?
no, what I will say is just a message to Ranger fans: enjoy the season. It's just going to be a lot different after this year. Obviously, Sam Rosen's last year. A lot of question marks for contracts next summer, and I know it's been a little bit frustrating the last couple seasons with the disappointing endings, but it could be so much worse. I mean, listen, I made the joke last week that only in New York can you find a franchise that goes from a rebuild to a last dance in 6 years, and Ranger fans have been very lucky that there haven't been a lot of years of misery. I mean, I look at Detroit; that's an original six franchise that went through a lot of pain. They're still I think going on like 8 years without making the playoffs. You look at Chicago; they're in a total rebuild last year. It was miserable. They probably won't even be that good again this year. They'll be solid, but not like that good this year. It could be so much worse. We've had a team that's been competitive almost every year. Maybe there was like 2 seasons that were pretty brutal, but we've been lucky as fans to get a really good product on the ice. And, next year it's going to be a way different Ranger feeling just without Sam, without, possibly a couple guys that we've grown to love over the years. And, this year is going to be hopefully something special, and hopefully the team gets it done, but don't let the wins and losses kind of take over, and just enjoy every little bit of it. That's all I'm going to say.
I think fans want that New England Patriots, like, dynasty team where
Mhm.
every year you're gonna win the cup. I would love
Yeah,
that,
well,
but
what fan base doesn't want that? But
yeah,
at least you have a team that you can call competitive every year. I think that's really important,
yeah,
and not just like mildly competitive, like pretty strongly competitive.
yeah. Good way to end the episode here. Well, Ice Cold Takes fans, thank you so much for listening. Johnny, thanks for coming on the show. We're gonna wrap it up here. I'll talk to you guys next week for episode 200 with the special guest who I will reveal next week. Bye, guys.